Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the virtual chapter for February 2021. There's an echo in here. It seems as though I just said that a few minutes ago, but here I am saying it again. And tonight we've got a special program for you. We're going to be talking about loving relationships. It's on the just a couple days away from Valentine's, so we thought that was a thing to do. But first, we want you to know that if you are spending an hour and a half here with us, we want to make sure that you get something for your effort. So what do they get for it, Karen?
Well, you'll get CEUs for one thing. We hope you'll get some techniques or some great ideas while you're here too, but you'll get CEUs with IACT, IMDHA, and all other friendly organizations. So be sure that you apply for your CEUs. That goes for whether you're here live or if you're here for the recording. And if you join us live and then watch the recording again, you get to a double bump. So apply for those CEUs with your friendly organizations.
And we do find out that there are some people in IACT and IMDHA who don't really know how to get their CEUs. So if you don't, all you have to do is to log in on the association's web page, and a little manual will pop up basically that lets you indicate that you earned some hours, that you spent some time studying hypnosis, and you just tell them what the date was and what you did. Tell them you came here and you listened to Michael talk for an hour and a half, and you think that you really ought to be compensated for that in some way, and they'll take care of you. So there we go. All right. Well,
Do you have any
before
announcements?
I'm sorry.
You're doing a stress workshop, are you not? You've got some announcements to make.
I am, and you can probably tell, can't you? I'm practicing for it even now. Yes, in fact. So here's a couple things I want to announce. First of all, the Galaxy of the Stars was just this past weekend. If you don't know about this, this is something we do a couple of times a year. It's a mini conference, if you will. It's a 2-day conference with only 4 presenters. So in other words, each presenter has a half a day to present whatever it is that they've got, and this thing typically runs for like well, if you register early, at least it runs for like $100, and 4 really intense workshops for $100 is a brilliant thing. And this time we concentrated on innovators, so we had some people doing some really cool things that most hypnotists just aren't doing. For example, we had Terence Watts. Some of you may know him. He's from England. He was talking about BWRT, which is brainwave. It's not brainwave. I'm going to say it wrong. I want to say brainwave recursive therapy, but it's something like that. And it's just an approach that he's developed, and some techniques that everybody learned how to do. Then Freddie Jacquin taught us a whole bunch of rapid hypnosis techniques that were marvelous, including the arrow. Some of you may be familiar with, which is a technique that he uses for pain, and a whole variety of other things. So that was really rich and full. Then Jess Marion, who some of you know, did a 3.5-hour program on deep trance identification. It was about modeling excellence and connecting with resources outside of yourself. And then finally, Johanna Lynn talked about family constellation work and what that was all about, and how you carry with you imprints, from your genetic history and such, and how to work with those things. So it was just a marvelous thing, and Karen was there. You
Yes,
had a
I
good
was.
time?
And by the way, brain working recursive
Good.
therapy,
Thank
brain
you very
working
much.
recursive technique. Yes, I
Thank
went
you
back
very
to
much.
my notes. I was there and I went back to my notes. So I'm quite handy.
Yep. And so the reason I'm mentioning it is we're going to have another one because we do it twice a year. The next one is going to be in September. We don't have the actual dates just yet, but it'll be either the second or third weekend. And it's going to be really kind of unique because I don't think we've ever done this at IACT or IMDHA before, but it's particularly on the spirit of hypnosis. And that means that we're going to talk about, well, spiritual hypnosis and maybe life between lives, and perhaps a workshop on dreams. We're getting the details kind of worked out, and so on. So if you're interested in those kind of spiritual or spiritualish, maybe if I can, spiritual light applications, I think you'll find something really useful there. The other things that I do want to mention, and thanks by the way for opening up for this, Karen. There's a couple programs coming up. The Certified Stress Management Consultant program, which is IACT IMDHA program, is the 27th and the 28th of March. So if you'd like to be a stress management consultant, well, this would be the way to get some CSMC behind your name. The Hypno Expo itself, the annual conference for IACT IMDHA, is the 21st and the 23rd of May coming up. And too bad that we're not going to be able to be in person or in place, or however we say it. The intention, however, was to have the conference in Orlando, and I'm going to be in Orlando for it. So
Rub it in.
you know, and you guys will be able to access it online, and so it will be an online conference. And watch your email; you'll see more information about that as time goes along. And what do you got, Karen?
I want to throw in, I have a post-conference workshop on May 24th, pandemic problem solving, the help out protocol that I'm doing with Ashley Lynn Caputo. And it's a mixed modality approach to dealing with pandemic problems, including Ashley is a COVID long hauler. She had COVID way back in June, maybe, and suffered loss of taste and smell and lingering fatigue. And we put our heads together and we found some ways to help her out of some of those issues. So we're going to help you out with that protocol too. And if you can't wait till May 24th, we will do it in 5 weeks, a 5-week look at it. It's the whole protocol. It's all everything that we're going to do on May 24th. But there were some people who said, we just don't want to wait that long. So that starts February 18th, and it will be for 5 weeks, February 18th through March 18th. If you want information on that, or if you want information on the conference, what we'll be doing with the Help Out Protocol, you can go to KarenHand.com, check out the trainings tab, and you'll find all sorts of cool things going on there.
Lovely. Has she gotten her smell and taste back yet?
Yes, she does. She has. Yes, we'll be using essential oils for that and some mind training to reconnect those neural pathways. It's very cool. We've got some interesting research on that. It's really
fantastic. Cool. I asked online in one of the Facebook groups if anybody had an experience with having lost taste and smell and what they did to recover it. And what I actually got was a whole lot of commentary. But all of the commentary was, I know this person that lost it. I know this person that lost it. I know this person that lost it. And nobody really had anything practical. So here you go, Karen. You've got something that.
Know somebody. I got a gal. I know somebody who lost it and got it back, and we know exactly how she did it. So,
lovely.
Yeah, that's why we will help you out.
Okay. Well, then I think it's time for us to move into our topic area for tonight. Karen mentioned, I think when we first talked about this, maybe it was actually on the broadcast last month, and we hadn't quite decided what we were going to do for February, that maybe we could have a Valentine's party. Because we do so well with our annual Christmas party. It seemed like a reasonable thing to do, and yet I persisted.
Yeah, he does that.
But yeah, and as it worked out, we're somewhere in the middle here. That is, our topic is certainly going to be relative to Valentine's Day, and by the way, although we're not having a party, if you got a glass of wine, you don't have to hide it underneath your table. You can go ahead and and sip from time to time, and we'll be happy with that. And you can pretend that you're at a party. Because Milton Erickson says you can pretend anything and master it. So I was interested in mastering something about working with relationships, and I've been working with relationships and with couples and with individuals by the way, we're not only talking about romantic relationships, although I think that might be a pretty big part of what I'm going to share with you. And Karen is going to share some other things with you as well. But almost everything that I have to say about relationships applies just as equally to spouses, couples. I think as to friends, to how to deal with your Uncle Pete, et cetera, because there's something about relationships that you really want to know, and we're gonna share it with you. So in preparing for this, one of the things that I did was, I went to the great electronic Smithsonian, Google, and and typed in loving relationships, just because I was curious to see what it was that was going to pop up. And it was as though I had gone into a woman's beauty parlor back in the 1970s. And, and there were a million magazines that all had these little quizzes about how to know if your relationship is what it's supposed to be. And if you got how to find a man and how to keep a man and how to, and all these things. And what I learned about the 4 habits of healthy relationships. I learned 7 tips for happy relationships. I learned the ABCs of being together and the secrets of staying in love. And I realized that all these different things that I was seeing kind of fell into 2 categories. And they really were created for pop media. Obviously, the first category was the sort of expected. You know, what's in healthy relationships is trust and loyalty and communication. And basically, these articles were just sort of passing on what's been said over and over and over again. And it's really in our sort of cultural understanding of what relationships are supposed to be. And yet the people don't seem to be finding a whole lot of satisfaction from. So they describe our cultural expectations and they hold them up as a standard for our lives. And when you read those articles about here's all the things that you need to do to have a successful relationship, I'm sure that any of us could find at least 3 or 4 things on that list where we might wonder if we weren't lacking. So somehow or another, I don't know what the intention of the authors were, but it didn't seem to do what I would like when I'm reading a magazine, particularly for entertainment, to feel good. It was like, oh my God, maybe I need to work on this. Oh, this is there. We really have to watch out for that. Look what happened to these people. So there's that stuff. You know, kind of here's the usual, what you expect and what society tells us a good relationship is about. And then there were some other articles that were more on the sort of technical side that we're teaching a bunch of skills, you know, how to get rapport, how to use language patterns, how to, you know, what to say when you're upset, and the 3 steps of a the 3 steps of a complaint in a loving relationship, you know, things like that, how to forgive one another, a step-by-step technique, and often without what I felt was a real appreciation for the humanness of the people involved. It's like programming techniques and procedures, but no sense of like real human people involved in them as I read them. So I thought we might want to start out with just generating a list instead of there are 4 habits and 7 tips and all that stuff. I'm curious, and I would like you guys to help me by, if you haven't already opened up the chat room, open up the chat room. And I'm going to ask you in the chat room to type like 2 or 3 words, you know, not long paragraphs or anything, but like 2 or 3 word descriptions of qualities or characteristics that you think are important in a successful relationship. And let's just see what you got. So, and I'm gonna read them out because, by the way, for the benefit of the recording, you know, the chat room won't be a part of that. So I want to make sure that the people see it. But just, yeah, open up the chat room and let's see some. Here's what I think you got to have in a good relationship. There we go. Humor, trust, honesty, being aware of the 5 love languages. I wonder what people did before they came up with that, though. Trust, tolerance. Okay, that's kind of interesting to me. By the way, that was Danny. Danny, can you open up your microphone for just a second? Do you mind? I mean,
no problem. Good evening, everybody.
Oh, good evening. Oh my goodness! And you are in South Africa, yes? That
is correct, sir.
That's lovely. Well, it's great to have you with us. Thanks for being here. It's sort of interesting, and I'm just kind of got paused when I saw the word tolerance because I thought, isn't it interesting that, you know, there are some people whose relationships are just joyous all the time, and it doesn't occur to them that tolerance is something that they need, you know. And then there are other people who go, you know, in my relationship, it takes a whole lot of tolerance in order, in order to be able to get through it. So thanks for sharing that. It's good stuff. And I'm.
May I add to that, as a woman who has been married 3 times, the first one lasted 3 years, the second one lasted 7 years, and this one has lasted 30 years. Intolerance gets you into divorce court. Tolerance gets you to a 30-year anniversary. Yeah. Tolerance and dedication and love and trust and humor and all of that. But intolerance will get you into divorce court every time.
Sure.
So I think Danny's really onto something.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And by the way, and thanks for mentioning that. So Karen, you've been in your relationship for 30 years. I'm having my 40th anniversary this year. And again, without making a big fuss about it, I am a gay man of a certain age, and gay men of my age aren't accustomed to having relationships that are 40 years long. So it really is an unusual thing in our community. And I'm going to tell you that it hasn't been difficult at all, which is one of the reasons why I really, I'm really looking forward to talking to this. So what else do we got? We got humor and trust. Every once in a while, I see the word trust. By the way, so I saw it came up a couple of times here, and people do say that that's on that first sort of official list. You got to be able to trust your partner. I think as an NLP person, one of the things that I would say to you though is you have to understand when you say you trust somebody, what it is that means. What do you trust about them? Because otherwise it betrays some expectations. You trust them to behave in a certain way or to act in a certain way or to do something. One of the things that I know is that if I needed brain surgery, I would not trust my husband to do it. Right. So we know when we say that you got to trust somebody, it doesn't mean you got to trust them about everything. And yet, so we often don't really think about it or understand just what it is that we're talking about when we use a word like that. And I find it really helpful. Of course, we're sort of all in this therapeutic field to sort of be clear with myself about what my expectations are, and and what it is that I can trust him to do, and or need to trust him to do. So we're going to get back to that in just a little bit anyway, but that certainly is one of them. And what else we got? Being aware. So Lisa, will you open your microphone, Lisa? Do you mind?
Sure. Hi.
Hi, how are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm great, thank you very much. And so you said being aware of the 5 love languages, and I'll tell you what, I believe that that's a very useful tool. I think that's really kind of a cool thing. However, what I know is before there were the 5 love languages, there were people in loving relationships. So one of the things that I'm really interested in is finding out what is it that's in us, like not that we gotta take some course or read some book or to do anything, but to actually be the loving people in loving relationships that that we want to be. And you're right on it, by the way, because the 5 love languages is really some beautiful stuff, by the way, and I think it can be very inspiring. But I hope that if you, I don't know if you have a partner or if you don't have a partner, but if you have a partner, I hope you haven't required them to learn the 5 love languages if they weren't interested in that, because sometimes they're not.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, my husband, I kind of identified him. I knew his language, and since I was aware of that, I I've learned to really adjust to it. His is time. Like he wants time with me. And if I wasn't aware of that, I think it would have really hurt us. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Right.
Thank
Right.
you.
And there was somebody up here. Where was I? I'm scrolling the chat room while I'm talking to you. Oh, somebody said honesty. I was looking for the word communication, but it was honesty, not communication. That was Michael. And hi, Michael. It's good to know that you're out there tonight. Will you open up your microphone too, please?
Michael actually had to leave.
Oh, he did.
Yeah, he's posted. Sorry, I gotta go.
Okay. Well, lovely. At least he told the truth about it.
Yeah, he was very honest.
That's a very important thing. Yeah. So when I saw the word honesty, though, what I was thinking about was communication, because I think generally when we say that, we mean the way that we talk to each other and we tell each other the truth, and and that sort of stuff. I've got to tell you, one of the things that I seem to have learned in my experience is that communication is an interesting thing, and we highly value it, and we learn all kinds of things. My buddy Karen here teaches people specific ways to use language and stuff. I mean, we're hypnotists. We make a big deal about talking and what it is that we say to each other. I mean, I haven't shut up since I got out here, right? So there's that, and some people have trouble in their relationship when they think their partner just doesn't talk enough or talk to them, or whatever it is. But there's another side to this one, and that is there's a difference between talking and a difference between being honest, as a matter of fact, and being a compulsive truth teller. You know, yeah, I'll tell you what, when somebody says, you know, do I look good in this outfit? You know, suck it up and say yes.
Yeah.
I really think that's a reasonable thing to do. Now, but I'm
Well,
not saying
depends. That depends. If you're out with your best girlfriend and you're wanting to know if this is going to get you hooked up at the club, you might want some real honesty,
Mhm.
right? I mean, you might be close enough with her that she can say, I don't know, that's not really your best color.
Well, but you know, you could actually just ask that when you get to the club, you could just ask some guy, is this going to get me hooked up? and see how that goes.
Well, that kind of communication might do it no matter how you look. That's pretty direct.
But yeah, but it occurs to me there certainly isn't there isn't a need to lie, and I'm not suggesting that you don't want to lie to your partner or to your friend or to whoever it is. But I don't want to say lie, but maybe exaggeration in certain cases might be a useful thing. By the way, in other words, it's okay to amplify the good stuff. So remember when we are hypnotists, right? So remember that when you're talking to people, you're actually creating experiences for them. You know, their brain is inside taking these words in and figuring out what they all mean and literally building an experience when you do hypnosis and when you're sitting across the table having a cup of coffee with somebody. So one of the things I would encourage people and I don't mean in a way that really comes off as phony or anything, but I would encourage people in relationships to give themselves permission to be generous with their praise and their support of their partner. Why not? It doesn't cost you anything. And here's one of the things that I noticed. If you start praising your partner, at least acknowledging them for the good things that they do, you might actually wind up valuing them. Because you start noticing, I'll tell you what, I'm really just talking about being mindful and then opening up your mouth. You know, you chose this person because there was something about them that, you know, that you found appealing and interesting. And, you know, so it's nice to be able to keep that stuff going on. We
Sure,
go
like with your clients, teach them about, being positive, but go looking for what they want as opposed to looking for what they don't want. And boy, isn't that a handy thing to do with your partner? If you sit there at the breakfast table and you begin to look for what it is you want, right? What is he or she doing that I find really interesting?
yeah.
I
Oh,
find that
this is
find
great.
really makes me comfortable. If you go looking for the things that you want, you're likely to find examples of them. And what a great positive way to look at it and to go into it and to compliment them.
Some people, imagine you can actually sit across the back breakfast table and ask yourself as you look at that other person, how much of what I want is actually right here? As opposed to, by the way, what's wrong with this? Right? Which is going to give you a whole different breakfast and ruin that cup of coffee, right?
Right.
So one of the things that I know, I mean, this is a platitude that you've probably heard. I heard it recently, and I thought it's just such a lovely way to say it. We go where we're welcomed, but we stay where we're valued. And you have the ability to create that experience for the person that's in your life. And if you want some stability in your relationship, maybe that's one of the best ways to do it. So that's one of my things. I also noticed though, when we talk about relationships in a certain way, and all of these articles and stuff that I read, there's something that's missing. And probably again, because I'm an NLP guy and I have an undergraduate background in linguistics as well, the first thing that I hear is this word relationship. We're talking about it like it's a thing that we got. I've got this relationship, you know. You can't put it in a wheelbarrow, right? So it really isn't a thing. It's a nominalization linguistically. And what a nominalization is when you take a verb and you refashion it just a little bit and make a noun out of it so that you can talk about it like it's a thing. But the verb, of course, is to relate. So Virginia Satir, the lady that the NLP folks modeled at the beginning of NLP and creating the meta model, would have clients come in and say to her, We have a bad relationship. You see, it sounds like a bad apple, by the way. It's like, well, then get rid of it, right? And what do you do with a bad thing? But we have a bad relationship. And Virginia would say, how is it that you're having trouble relating to each other? And my sense is, at least this is how it works in my mind, when you have the understanding, if it's a thing, you're stuck with it. But if it's a process, it's something that you do. And if it's something that you do, then it's something that you can do differently. There isn't a lot of hope for a bad relationship if it's a thing. But there's all kinds of hope for challenges in learning how to relate, because that's something you can train, that's something you can discover, that's something that you can develop. And to me, that seems to be a really important part of it. By the way, the other thing that I think is interesting is it's a whole lot more fun to love somebody than to be disappointed with them. So if you really consider the fact that on some level, and again, I'm challenging you as hypnotists to realize how much you already know about this. If you have the option to decide how it is that you want to relate to your relationship, you can create some beautiful stuff for yourself. And the people that are just already thrilled and ecstatic about the way that their relationships are going, they're doing the very things that we're talking about naturally. Not as some technique, not as some learning, but they're actually loving the person that they're with. And this to me is one of the coolest things. When we're pissed off at our partner, we forget that we're in love with that person. Because you wouldn't talk to somebody you love the way that you talk to your partner when you're pissed off. Right? I mean, there's really something. And when you actually touch into, even if your partner is doing something that's upsetting to you, to find yourself in a place where you can say to yourself, gosh, this is somebody that I love. And the response that I have for them needs to be a loving response. When you get woke, then then it becomes your responsibility. If you want to be satisfied, then you need to do something that will help you get to an experience of satisfaction. Here's the thing that I know. Life is like this, right? Can you see that? This is ups and downs, right? Ups and downs, the big roller coaster of life. And, I was involved, there's a thing called the health realization training, just health realization. And it evolved into what I know. I'm watching Karen's response, because you know what I'm talking about. It evolved into what became the 3 principles. But at the beginning of it, one of the things that they were just talking about is the way that life goes up and down and up and down and up and down. For everybody, you have your good days, you have your bad days. It gets better, and then some things happen, and then you recover from them, and then some stuff gets good, and then some stuff happens again. Welcome to the ebb and flow, of the world. But one of the problems is when life is down, you really don't have all of your resources available to you. It's the place when you are just not in the best kind of mental condition, right, that you could be in. You're not the healthiest when life is down. And really the ups and downs, I think, largely reflect our own insecurities as well. But when you're down, when you're at the bottom of this loop, the thing that I find is that's when people make these incredible, far-reaching decisions about what they're going to do with the rest of I'm not going to stay in this job anymore. This sucks. I'm going to chuck my career, right? I'm going to go tell the boss, whatever it is, when you're not in a healthy place. And what the folks at Health Realization were suggesting is, if you wait a day or two, if you're all the way down at the bottom, if you wait a day or two, it's going to get a little better. You're going to have a little more perspective. You're going to have a little more of an ability to respond. I saw on TV, by the way, I've been watching all these lovely old things, and particularly the Medici. Some of you might remember this great HBO series, or whoever did it, and I've been watching that. And somebody said on an episode the other day, says, "I hope your wisdom is stronger than your anger." And I thought, wow, what that was just one of those quotes. I had to pause the TV, and grab a pen and write it down, because I somehow, as if by doing that, it would permanently become etched in my consciousness. But anyway, life is up and down. It's up and down, and you need to wait until you're in a place to be able to make this. I'm going to leave my marriage because I feel shitty today. It's what a crazy thing, and yet it happens all the time with people. So being able to hang in there, at least for another one day at a time, or another, I think is a really crucial thing in this. To stay in your life, one of the things, by the way, yeah, you need to be in your life when it's happening. So, but here's the caveat: keep your hands and feet inside the car at all times. Worrying is this thing that we do. It's a time machine. By the way, another one of Karen's expertises, by the way. It's a time machine. And it's a time machine where we go off into the future. It is also a misuse of the imagination. If you think about this, when we're feeling insecure and we sort of drift off into our anxious, insecure self, instead of being here in the moment, we start creating some threatening fantasy in our mind, some imagined future that takes us everywhere that we don't want to go and shows us everything that we don't want to see. So we get to experience it. Hypnotists, remember this part. You're down and your husband is a half hour late coming home from work. And you say to yourself, he used to just come rushing home as quick as he could at the end of the day to be here as soon as possible. I don't think he's happy. He doesn't love me like he used to. Remember the way he used to look at you, and you remember the way he used to look at you, and you remember it in some way that tells your brain, even while you're seeing this picture, I don't get that anymore. He's really not into me. He's probably having an affair. Who's that new woman that they hired down there at the office? I'm going to lose him. Or worse, who's that new woman that they hired down at the office? I'm sure it must be her that he's hooking up with. I'm going to leave him. And nothing happened except your husband was a half an hour late for work, and maybe with some very good excuse, but you spent an evening in this torturous experience of everything that you do not want, giving yourself hypnotic suggestions, painting a picture and stepping inside of it, and having a miserable relationship. It's really interesting. You could be having a really miserable relationship and your partner could be having a really lovely one. And you might not even be aware, because you're doing this all by yourself. I'm home alone. I'm not sure if I'm good enough to even exist on the planet. How I got into this relationship, I don't even know, but it's probably not going to last. Right? And we do these terrible, torturous things to ourselves when we are insecure. And it'll zap you. But so what a trip, right? What a trip. We live so much of our experiential life in our head and not in the real world at all. It isn't reality that gets us. It's that private reality that we're creating. So we see things in the world and we ask ourselves, what does this mean? I heard my mother's tone of voice in my mind. What does this mean? So, and we come up with some meaning. Because he's a half hour late for work, it means he's not interested in being here as quickly as he used to. And we run off of that thing that we've just made up. And if we're insecure enough, it will end up meaning something really unpleasant and really unwanted and undesired. And we will feel it. And it will feel real. Right? So we know this, by the way. And again, I want to tell you, you guys are hypnotists, right? Think about a lemon and you can taste it. Think about losing your husband or your wife or your girlfriend or your best friend or anyone. and you can feel it. So if you got all these bad feelings going on in your relationship, maybe it has something to do with what it is that you're using your mental bandwidth to think about and to create in your mind. So stop it. Just stop it. Some of you know the Bob
The
Newhart.
Bob Newhart piece, yeah.
Yeah. So, and just to remind you, when I say this, because I know some people don't get it, and this is something I've said 100 times on these various broadcasts. So pardon for those of you for whom it is a repetition. What I'd like you to notice is how it's evolved through time and how much better it is. But it is as though these thoughts that go whizzing through our head are like subway trains. Here's one thought, and here's another thought, and here's another thought, and here's another thought, and we live in this ocean of thought. It's all generated inside of us, and it all keeps on going on. But if you're in the subway station, one of the things I hope you realize is just because a train pulls into the station doesn't mean you need to get on it and ride it. You might notice, oh, there's an interesting train. But I notice on the front where it says, the destination of the train on the front, it says to hell and back. And I realized I went there yesterday. I think today I'll just wait for the next one. Maybe we'll go somewhere different. We can make some choices about things like that. And we've got to realize that that's very possible. When it comes to your own personal life, you don't think about it, but you tell your clients this stuff every day. If you're doing hypnosis with people, you are telling them you can change your thoughts, and changing your thoughts will change your life. So you can tell yourself, I'll think about that later. Have you ever been really engaged in something and some question comes up and you're trying to figure out maybe how to do this recipe or something that you have in mind, but this isn't the time for it because there's something going on that really requires your attention? Somewhere inside of your head, have you not all had the experience of going, well, I'll just have to think about that later, because right now, we dismiss thoughts all the time. But somehow or another, if they're bad enough, or if they hurt enough, or if they have enough feeling packed into them and they feel really real, then they become so seductive that we're like, oh, I think I'm going to hang out with this miserable idea for longer than is necessary or useful, or helpful. And in fact, it's damaging to your health. What we feel is the effect of our thinking. And your feelings are a barometer of the quality of your thinking. What is it that you're spending your time on inside of your head? You can do something about that. In fact, one of the things, if you need a technique, the technique is when you're feeling miserable and you notice that you've got these thoughts inside of your head that are contributing to that miserable feeling, ask yourself the question, what can I think about instead? Just ask that question. What can I think about instead? And what you'll notice is, as soon as you ask the question, it moves you meta to the experience. You're not in it now. You're commenting on it from some dissociated way. You're going, here's what I was thinking about, but I wonder what I could think about instead of this. It'll take you meta. And then give yourself permission to change the channels, whether it's Nick at Night that, that'll do it for you, or whatever you want. Change the channels. If you're anxious about your late husband, I mean, not your late husband. Don't let me confuse you.
Husband, tardy.
But if you're anxious about your late husband, well, it must be the reason that you're anxious is because you have had some loving experiences with him. It's why it matters to you. So if you've had loving experiences with your husband and he's late coming home, what you may actually want to do is to notice that what it's about is, this is somebody that I really love, and spend some time thinking about those loving experiences while you wait for him to get home. You can start celebrating the relationship before he gets home, right? Here's one of the other things that I notice is people have the idea that my partner disappoints me all the time. He disappoints me when he does this. He disappoints me when he does that. God bless St. Richard Bandler, who taught us all disappointment requires adequate planning. Your partner does not disappoint you. Your unfulfilled expectations disappoint you. What ends up happening is you don't get what it is that you expected that you were supposed to get. And somehow or another, you're going to put that off on somebody else as though it was their responsibility to make sure that you got that in the first place. You can't expect, some people expect their partner, I noticed, to be every single thing that they need. I need somebody to talk to. I need somebody to go shopping with me. I need somebody to go to the theater with me. I need somebody to do this. I need somebody to do that. Well, I have a husband who isn't particularly chatty, for example. But then I have friends like Karen, right? And this is exactly my point. You have a responsibility to your own happiness to get what it is that you need. Don't expect your partner to do it all. Get some friends. You want to talk to me about my work? Fine. Get some friends who will talk to you about work. He isn't interested in art? Good. Find somebody else to go to the museum with. Certainly don't drag. So here's the thing. He is interested in art, but I'm going to fix that. I'm going to drag him to the museum so that he will see how beautiful art is and come to appreciate it all. Wow. That's going to turn out pretty badly, right? So get what you need, and your partner will appreciate that much more than your demands that they become somebody that they're not. If you want them to be different so that they can be okay with you, then you're not loving them. You're loving your imaginary prince and resenting your partner for not being that. Why did you pick this guy? Because there's something wonderful about him. Love that about him. The other thing I remember with Virginia Steer that I think was so cool, she moved the furniture around all the time. She loved this. She started out with couples sitting in chairs facing one another quite often, which is this confrontational position, and then she would gradually start adjusting them until by the end of the session, they were both looking out in the same direction. It was a cool thing. But at the beginning of her sessions, she would often ask them, how is it out of all of the people in the world that you could have ended up with, that the two of you found each other? And what does that bring to mind? It makes you start to think about when we first got together, where we met, what we, all of those things, and all of those gushy feelings come back. And then Virginia would reach out and put her hand on like the knee or whatever of both of them to get an anchor to this. Then as the session went on, if the session started to deteriorate, the people started arguing with each other, all sort of things, she would interrupt the conversation somehow, just completely interrupt it with something separate. And then she would reach over and establish those anchors again. And she said, now, where were we again? And it would just restore that, and they would start doing something really useful. I had a couple that I worked with in San Francisco, and the reason that they were seeing me, at my assessment, and it's an oversimplification, of course, is because she was a therapist and he wasn't. And she was a vengeful therapist. I mean, she was an analytical therapist, and he couldn't do anything with her without her explaining to him why he was the way that he was, and all this stuff. It was just crazy. But they came to see me, and they got into my office, and they started arguing with each other. And poor me, I mean, this is like 30 years ago. And I'm just doing my best to try to maintain my composure and have something useful happen. And they just kept going at each other. And finally, I didn't know what else to do. So what I did was, within control, by the way, I mean, I did it deliberately, but for their eyes, I snapped. I stopped them. I interrupted them. I stood up. I took the check that they had given me and I gave it back to the woman in the couple. And I said, how dare you come in here and think that you can subject me to, an hour of listening to the two of you scream at each other? You can do that at home, and it doesn't even cost you any money. So why don't you take your check and grab your purse, and the two of you just get the hell out of here, because I'm not going to spend any more time with you. And I kicked them out of my office, literally kicked them out of my office. And because she was a therapist, this is, I mean, I was hoping for this response, by the way. They got halfway down the hall, and by the way, the halls in this San Francisco building are like marble floors, and you could hear them, the whole distance. And I heard them get halfway down the hall towards the elevators, and all of a sudden they stopped, and they just broke up laughing. They just broke up laughing because, I'm sorry, just before they broke up laughing, they were saying to each other, "Who does he think he is? and bitching about me instead of each other. And they found themselves both on the same side. And when and when the therapist lady realized that that's what was happening, now they were suddenly partners in this outrage. She just broke out in hysterical laughter. And they came back to the office and they apologized to me, and we finished this, and this session went very productive. So let's see. I apologize for, I slipped out of my outline here just a little bit. I also want to look at the clock because I know that I am just going on. Oh my gosh, it is, yeah, it is already 8:30. Well, so let me just go just a little bit farther, and then because I'm going to turn this over to Karen in a few minutes because she's got some great stuff to share with us as well. But one of the things I will say, you can't expect your partner to be everything for you, but you can ask for what you want. I think you probably should ask for what you want, but you can't require your partner to be able to give you something that they're not able to give you. And if you can't get what you want in your relationship, then you're going to have to figure out what to do about that. That's reality. That is, but you can't require them to be somebody else and then be unhappy because they are who they are. But when you can figure out how to love your partner as they are, then you're golden. Then you're bulletproof. Life is a contact sport. So real stuff does happen. And if you don't come home dirty at the end of the day, then you're probably not doing your job. I had a friend in San Francisco. We put together a seminar called Finding Mr. Right, and it was mostly for gay men. It was during the AIDS epidemic. 30 years ago this year. So towards the end of that, just a little bit. We found that too many people had the idea that having a relationship would be the solution to all of their personal problems and insecurities, that having a relationship would make their life right. So if they were in one that ended, their intention was to figure out as quickly as possible. Now, bear in mind, I'm talking about a particular demographic. I really am talking about gay men in Chicago, and San Francisco. That what they were really looking for was, who's the next person that will say yes to me so I can start this cycle all over again, because I've got to be in a relationship. I'll be happy when I'm in a relationship. I'll feel loved when I'm in a relationship. And all of those things that are so important to me can only be true if I'm in a relationship. So please, somebody, say yes. And what we did with that workshop was we taught people to define their criteria in advance. If you're going to go out looking for a new car, it's nice to have some idea about what qualities you wanted to have. This is just as true in people, rather than finding out who can you get and then trying to make them who you want them to be. Wouldn't it be nice to know, here's what I'm looking for, here's what I'm looking for evidence of, and when I see that somewhere, I'm going to know this is the one, this is the one that I want. This is the one that's really going to work with me, and they don't need to be changed. And this is true about friendships as well. This is true about any manner of relations. This is true about jobs. It's true about everything. Know what your criteria is in advance, and then make wise choices. And then you won't end up having to be disappointed later on. So what does all this have to do with hypnosis and hypnotherapy? I do NLP as well. And one of the things that I will say in doing either of those things, we have a task before us to get a description from the people that we work with about what it is that they're trying to achieve in their relationships, in their life, and to get clear with them about, well, one of the things is that I mentioned that relationships were a nominalization, but so is love. So to help them understand that love is something that you do. You want to be in a loving relationship, then learn how to be loving, learn how to do loving. It feels good to love somebody, does it not? And that's cool, because that's entirely within your control. So one last thing, it's about the power of commitment. And I, as I said, I have been in my relationship for 40 years, and at the beginning of it, my husband and I, some of you, you've got to be old enough to really appreciate this. My husband and I were involved in EST. Some of you might know about this Werner Erhard's seminar training that evolved into what is now the Landmark Forum. But it was really rigid. It was really terrible that day. And we escaped from EST together. But one of the things about EST was they made a big fuss about keeping your agreements. I think this is the way to be a prophet in the world, by the way. To be a prophet in the world is to learn to trust your words so much that you know when you say a thing that you're going to make it true. So as far as this is when my relationship came to be, and I have told people, and I don't mean this in a superfluous way. I've told people from time to time that something that's so special for me about my relationship is that I take it totally for granted. And I don't want you to misunderstand what I mean by that. But what I actually mean by that is in previous relationships, and many of you have been in these places before too, I found myself when something if something wasn't going exactly the way that we wanted it to, or it wasn't particularly smooth at the moment, to have this concern about, oh my God, we're going to break up. Who's going to move out? Who's going to keep the cat? What are we, all of that stuff. And I had a few relationships just like that. Something went bad, and the first thought was, oh well, this is going to be the end of this one. I have not had that thought in my current relationship, except for once, very much towards the beginning. And when it came up that very first time, thank God that Broadway had just blessed the world with Dreamgirls, and there's a marvelous song on Dreamgirls, where she says, "I am, and I'm telling you, I'm not leaving. I'm going to stay, and you're going to love me." So we had this one bad day, and my husband was gone for the day. He was going to be coming back later, from work. And when he came back home from work, basically, that's exactly what I said to him was, you're not getting out of this one. I'm going to stay right here, and we're going to have this work. And that was all it took. I think somehow or another, he needed a demonstration that, yes, this commitment was a commitment. And some people have said to me, well, gosh, it can't be that good. You stay together just because you made an agreement. That's no reason to stay together. Well, gosh, I think that's every reason to stay together, because it is a demonstration that that agreement was serious and speaks to both of us about how much we appreciate and respect the relationship itself. So I really haven't had to worry about that since, and that's all they say about that. So remember, the thing that I just want to leave with, because I really want to give this over to Karen. And Karen, I'm sorry for blabbing on quite so long, but do the loving. Do the loving. Enjoy being somebody who loves, rather than spend your time trying to work out whether or not the other person loves you enough so that you can let go of your sense of of your low self-esteem or whatever it is that puts you in that place. Do the loving because it feels great. In an EST seminar, an EST communication seminar, we were all asked to think about some undelivered communications that we had and to deliver them. And at the break, everybody rushed to the banks of payphones. Y'all remember payphones that were out in the lobby, to call that one person, to tell them that one thing. I called my father to tell him that I loved him. And I was so concerned that the response that came back wasn't going to be what I wanted to hear, that I let him off the hook. What I actually said to him was, Dad, I want you to know that I love you, and that I know that you have always loved me too. It felt good to let him off the hook. And by the way, his response was to tell me a slightly off-color joke. I think I will share it. He said, what do you call an because my father joked a lot, by the way, so completely out of context. Dad, I love you. I want you to know that I know you have always loved me. He paused for a moment and he says, well, hey there, son. He says, what do you call an impotent mountain climber? And I'm like, I don't know, Dad, what? The punchline is dry sack on the rocks. So here's my dad making a joke. And I'll tell you what, It was the best communication that they could. It was a very clear communication. He makes a joke about impotence. And I understood that, yeah, thank God I let him off the hook, because that was just going to be really a hard thing for him to say, because he didn't know how to do it. He didn't have it in him. So do yourself a favor if you're in a loving relationship, and love as much as you can, as richly and wonderfully as you can, and you'll do great. So I'm going to breathe now. And
I'm going to hark back to the example that Michael gave us of the woman who's home alone and her husband's 30 minutes late. She's saying, oh, I know that he doesn't love me. I know that there's something wrong. Oh, I'll bet he's having an affair with that new woman that just started. And what is she doing? Hypnotizing herself. She's doing classic self-hypnosis. She's giving herself suggestions over and over and building, which we in hypnosis tend to think of as deepening, right? We take someone deeper into a trance. As this woman is going over these things in her mind and coming up with more and more and more, she's deepening the trance into that belief. I know he doesn't love me. And she's building that belief. And what we know about beliefs, they're not fact. A belief is not inherently fact, but the fact is we will always act and behave according to our beliefs. So if we talk ourselves into a belief that we're worthless, or that he doesn't love me, or whatever we talk ourselves into, deepening that trance as we go, we are going to act and behave as if that belief is true. So when he comes in the door, are we going to act as if he loves us, or act as if he's been out having an affair, because we built that belief? And what I would want to tell someone who comes to me with that issue is, oh my gosh, you've got an incredible skill, and we're going to use that. In the same way that you talked yourself into that belief, let's discover how to use that self-hypnosis to create a belief that you want more of. And in a case like that, it always has to start here. This person that Michael, this fictional character that Michael told you about, may never have had that spark of a belief, that conception of a belief, had she thought more highly of herself. Had she been saying, oh my goodness, I wonder what's happened, because of course he would never leave me, because of course he's always wanting to come rushing home to me, so I wonder what happened. Maybe she would have done something valuable with that imagination, like call the police and say, I think you need to check the highways. My husband must have been in an accident. I mean, that would be something that you could actually do with that worry, rather than build the self-belief that you're worthless. So I would like to say that it starts here. And what I'd like to share with you is a hypnosis process that is really self-hypnosis. But I want you to use it. We'll do this. It won't take too long. We'll do this together. And, we don't do hypnosis in the virtual chapter all the time, but why not do it? If you would like to join me in this, I would love to lead you through a hypnosis process, building your belief, building your self-belief. And if you can do this every day, and especially when those neural pathways start going down the wrong path, wait a minute, stop, just like Michael said, stop and build yourself up, change the trance, build a different belief instead. You might want to think about this and use something like this. So if you'd like to join me, go along, and you're in a place where you can be comfortable. If you're listening to this on a recording and you're driving, please do not participate in this. But if you are someplace where you can comfortably join in and close your eyes for about 15 minutes, then please join along.
And put down your heavy machinery if you're operating any of it at all.
That's right.
To remember.
That's absolutely right. And
this is going to be exciting.
Just join along. Just as you make yourself comfortable, go ahead and close your eyes when you're ready, and just go on. And recall for just a moment, the room that you're in. Remember all the things you can remember about the room that you're in. You remember what's across the room from you. You remember what's behind you. You know what's to your left and to your right. You remember all those things, but if you don't mind, narrow your focus just a little bit. Narrow your focus to just maybe about a 2-foot circle around you. And begin now to just notice those things in that 2-foot circle around you. I don't know if there are sounds or maybe smells. Maybe there's something that you can feel close to you. Just notice what you can notice in that 2-foot circle. And now narrow your focus just a little bit more. Narrow your focus to just the boundaries of your body, to your skin. And you can notice now what's touching your skin, maybe the clothes on your skin, maybe the room temperature on your skin, maybe feel it on your face. Just right here around your skin. Maybe you feel your arms resting on something. Maybe you feel the surface you're resting upon pushing up into your back or your butt. You know, notice that surface you're resting upon. Just notice it for a moment. Pay particular attention to that surface you're resting upon and realize it is giving you unconditional support. That surface doesn't care if you sink deeply down into it or if you just float there on the surface of it. It's going to continue to give you unconditional support. So as you continue to narrow your focus now, take your focus to inside your body, inside your skin, your muscles, your tendons, the inner organs, maybe the sound of your beating heart, your breathing, your lungs expanding and contracting. Focus now on letting go, allowing your subconscious mind time to embrace each of the positive suggestions. Concentrate on your breathing. Here's an interesting thing. Notice the very beginning of the breath. And then notice the end of the breath. And it's really interesting to notice the entire breath. The very beginning and the middle of the breath, where it goes all the way in and turns around and becomes an exhale. And then notice the end of the breath. The beginning, the middle, the end, and maybe even the space between the breaths. And as you continue breathing comfortably, you can take your attention to behind your closed eyes, your home, where you live, inside your own imagination. You know, everyone has their own way of allowing relaxation. Some move from the scalp into the facial muscles and tendons, going loose, limp, and completely relaxed. So comfortably relaxed that each time you go into this empowering, positive, and dynamic state of hypnosis, you can go even deeper inside your own mind, deeper inside your own mind, more relaxed, more comfortable with greater peace of mind and body, peace, tranquility, self-confidence. And all you really need to do is breathe. Breathe through this process now. The simple act of breathing alters your state of awareness so that you easily go further inside to that comfortable state, allowing you to emerge refreshed, revitalized, and renewed with greater determination to enjoy and use your skills, your own abilities motivation to accept yourself, and determination to appreciate the uniqueness of you. The more relaxed your body becomes, the more positive, the more optimistic, the more productive your body will be upon emerging. And the more positive and appreciative your mind will be of the wonder of you. And each of the resources you need upon emerging to reach your personal goals will be readily available to you, as readily available to you as oxygen. And all you have to do is breathe. Breathe them into being as you're realizing that you're discovering the power of letting go of those old thoughts, letting go of those old behaviors, those old beliefs that have no control over you now, in this or in any other level of consciousness. Allowing you to change 100% of the things you can change that will improve the quality of your life, the quality of your thoughts, the quality of all of your relationships. All negative thoughts, all negative beliefs, all negative concepts are neutralized from your mind, eliminated by your body's awareness, because you have decided today you no longer need old habits, old beliefs, old limiting thoughts. After all, there's only one constant in the universe, and that is the constant of change. Today, you've decided to change your mind to change your life. And all you really need to do is breathe, breathing in deeply and out completely, as you redirect your awareness now to you. That's what this is really all about. It's about improving you, improving your quality of life, improving the quality of your life by improving the quality of those thoughts. Makes me think of Michelangelo, the sculptor. When they asked him about it, you know what he said? He said it starts with the spark of an idea, where he looks deep into the marble and he can see that masterpiece that's there deep inside where you are now, taking a journey to the treasure chest that is you. Feel the relaxation response now as a flood of information down to the scalp, the facial muscles, the tendons, down the neck, across the shoulders, down the arms, to the tips of the fingers, all the way down to the bottom of the feet as you relax deeper. So relaxed that you can easily now journey back through time. In fact, back to the very beginning of time, where you're going to realize your greatness from the very beginning, where you learn to see through new eyes, hear through new ears, and feel through the newness of your body at the very moment of conception. You knew you were a winner, because winners learn from where they are to wherever they're going. So today you can easily accept the success and the failure of the past. All you really need to do is journey back through time to the very earliest pleasing, positive memory for you. And when you're at that very earliest pleasing, positive memory, step into it. Imagine breathing that positive, empowering memory into your mind. Imagine to the very best of your ability that you can see through those new eyes at that event. Imagine you can hear it through new ears, and that you can actually sense and feel it the way you were sensing and feeling it at that earliest memory you choose to review today that was positive and productive. Now, some have traveled all the way back to the very first step taken without holding on to a table, a sofa, or a parent's hand. That very first step was something you truly desired to do. And nothing would stop you from experiencing this moment of success. If you fall, you just get back up and joyously continue to take more steps into your future. Because you realize the wonder of you, discovering balance all on your own. No one could do it for you. You know, some recall the first time they picked up a spoon and fed themselves. And even when it gets a little messy, this new skill and experiencing even the tiniest taste of success brings so much joy and increases the desire to move in the direction of success with strategies that are just below the level of the conscious mind. Whatever you desire, whatever your path, your subconscious mind knows exactly what needs to change specifically so that you have more joy, greater happiness, and greater prosperity. So if you don't mind, imagine bringing forward through time each pleasing, positive, and dynamic event that has ever shaped your life. Categorize and organize it, store it in bright living color. Make all of those events real and vibrant in your mind, so colorful and bright that you call upon them as resources, skills, abilities, and resources that are so natural to you that upon emerging, your subconscious mind gathers them so that when you need the unconditional support of your own mind, it is there 100% productive for you, helping you to get where you are to where you want to go. Notice that deep, deep inside, there's that small, still voice of wisdom. The wisdom tells you you have done the very best you could every step of the way, given the information that you had at the time. And as you know, when you know better, you do better. Today, you're being given new information, different information that empowers you to experience life moving freely and easily in the direction of your desired goal, freely activating your mind, freely activating your thoughts, freely structuring your beliefs as you begin to understand the power that you have had all the time, utilizing your skills in new and different ways as easily and naturally as you breathe. The brain is a goal-oriented organ, and you will always get what you go looking for. Each time you allow this state of hypnosis by taking a moment to go inside your mind, you are retraining the brain to choose the experience you want. Negative events can be stored in black and white still images, like faded pictures in an old photo album. Storing them, categorizing them, organizing them so far behind you that you learn from the experience that which is most valuable to you. And then you step out of the past and into the freedom, the power, and the flexibility of the moment we call now. As you retrain your brain, your mind expands. Your brain, as well as your body, is going to absorb each positive suggestion. And most importantly, your life improves because you want it to. It will improve because you've decided to appreciate yourself. Make it happen upon emerging. Self-love and satisfaction will permeate every cell, system, and organ, providing you peace of mind, harmony in your thoughts. Health and vitality are your key words for today. Each beat of your heart reminds you health, harmony, vitality, and happiness. And each night as you drift off into sleep, a deep, restful sleep, you'll be able to evaluate any stress, strain, or confusion from your day, evaluate the feedback, and make all the changes that you decide are necessary to reach your goals. And as you breathe in deeply and out completely, step into the resources, the skills, and abilities that are available to you. Realize you have skills and abilities and resources you haven't even considered. It'll be triggered by experiences you couldn't even imagine that will be part of your day-to-day experiences from this day forward, creating physical changes, mental changes, emotional changes that for you will last a lifetime. as you experience yourself now, as you were genetically intended in the very beginning winning moment when you were conceived. You were conceived a winner in the very race for life itself. You were the very first of your kind and the last. There's no one uniquely like you, and there never will be another. So today you're relaxing into the knowledge that you can maximize your mind, harmonize your thoughts, and empower yourself with the belief in positive change. In a moment, my voice will pause and a perfect space is created for you to imagine how easy and natural it is to love yourself, appreciate yourself, celebrate you as you embrace the masterpiece of your uniqueness. And when my voice returns, it will double and then triple the effectiveness of your decision today to put self-love in your heart. Each and every positive suggestion is now becoming permanently a part of your mind, transforming into your beliefs and convictions so that success follows you as surely as your shadow. Even now, as you breathe in deeply and breathe out completely, that's right. Your subconscious mind is making all the necessary changes, changes that will be spontaneous, natural, and automatic for you, where you're free to accept yourself, love yourself, praise yourself for winning the award of life, realizing that every moment from this time forward is spent on negative thoughts is a waste of your beliefs and your imagination and your awareness, because you can always shift into the direction you want to go. That's been your natural nature since the very first winning spark of life. So decide now to open your mind to the possibility that you deserve the health, happiness, and vitality that life offers you. In a moment, but not just yet, you can open your eyes and expand your focus, opening up the possibility of living your life as you want it because you deserve it. Notice your breathing and expand it out of your skin. Notice what's around your body, the clothes on your skin, the surface you're resting on, the smells around you. And when you're ready, take that nice, refreshing breath and rejoin us back here with that self-love in your heart because you deserve it. And it feels so good. Good stretch, Gloria. Thank you for taking that journey with me. I wrote that out as a script for you, and in case you would like to have a script of that you can use and modify and turn it around for your own uses, send me an email, Karen@KarenHand.com, and I'll send you the wonder of you, and you can play with it.
Lovely. It's a beautiful thing, Karen. And I am so wonderful.
You are wonderful. I've known that from the very beginning.
I do want to say, as we're running to the end here, that really was spectacular. I'm on my way back to wrap this up. I realized when I was talking earlier, I was just expressing a lot of opinions, and I want to make sure that I'm clear about something. I tell people all the time, I am not right, but I have a perspective, and I hope that there's some things that I said that maybe y'all agree with, and there may be some things that your experience is a little bit different than mine. That's perfectly all right. But because I know that I'm not right. My family will tell you, ask them, they will say that Michael is just not quite right. But I do have my perspective. What I'd like you to do is to take what was useful. And if there's something that wasn't useful, by the way, guess what? well, you probably just didn't hear me correctly. So, so take what's useful and leave the rest, of course. But Karen, thank you for taking us on that lovely journey, that lovely experience.
You're quite welcome. It was my pleasure. And a couple of people have asked for my email. It's in the chat room, but if you don't have the chat room open, it's Karen, Karen, at KarenHand.com.
Beautiful. All right. Well, we are in fact coming to the very end. So we do have a couple announcements that we need to make once again, and that is just to remind you that tomorrow, round about noon, as close to that as I can manage it, the replay will be posted. And that's the beautiful thing. Not only can you get the script from Karen, but you can listen to Karen again and again and again, and and take yourself through the process. So so the recording will be available, posted on the virtual chapter YouTube channel, posted on the virtual chapter Facebook group. It will be there as well, and posted on the IACT IMDHA Mind Matters forum, where you can get it there. Also, we want to remind you to collect, you have Pass to Go, so you have every right to collect your CEUs from IACT, IMDHA, IHF, ICBCH, and all other friendly and loving hypnosis organizations. So so please do that. And I'm going to let you say goodbye to the gang now, Fred.
Well, I would just like to say thank you for joining us, and join us next month because we will have another exciting thing coming up in March. Not sure exactly what it will be yet, but we'll let you know.
But we know it will be awesome.
We know it will be awesome.
Okay. All right, everybody.
Thank you all for joining us. We appreciate it. We'll see you next month. And always
Thank you so much.
Well, let's
Good
open
night.
up the microphones and feel free to say goodbye.
Say yes, goodbye to all of you.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you very much.
Good night.
Have a
Happy
nice-
Valentine's Day. Happy, love yourself.
And remember that
Yes.
Valentine's Day has an apostrophe in it.
You're right.
Just had to put that in there. All right. Love y'all. Bye-bye.
Love you.
Thank
Goodbye.
you.